and welcome to Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey.
And I'm Reena, and hi.
Hello. We have been doing many more episodes than we have typically done in the past. We used to do, or tried to do, one every 2 weeks. But this year we're back after a break, and we're back after a break. So we're going kind of hard and doing multiple episodes a week on some weeks and whatnot. So just want to throw a reminder to people that we do have episodes for the first two Falcon and Winter Soldier up. We have episodes for the Snyder Cut up. We did 2 for the entirety of WandaVision. So there's a bunch of stuff that if you missed it and you are coming on to basically this one fresh, there's a bunch of stuff that we did recently if you're interested in that. Otherwise, let's get into Godzilla vs. Kong.
Olive would like you to watch, in case you didn't hear that, Olive would like you to watch and listen to the podcast episodes we've done.
Yeah, if you didn't,
you don't want to disappoint. You don't want to disappoint her.
Applause on the.
Like, do you really want to disappoint an adorable French bulldog? No, you don't.
Mm-mm.
No, but yeah, let's get right into it. Godzilla versus King Kong. I know we were both really excited about this movie coming out.
Well, I was excited for it, but I'm also going into it. I was a little tepid comparatively to the last movie because I didn't love the last movie. I'm one of the people who thinks that the human stuff is very important in these movies. And so the last movie let me down with that because while some people just don't care and don't want the human stuff in there, I want the human stuff in there and for it to be good. And I don't think it was that good in the last movie. I think it was improved in this one. So I was a little tepid going into it, but I came out pleased, I'll say.
I would say, though, this was more of a Kong movie than a Godzilla movie, which which I was actually surprised by.
This is a quite good Kong movie and an okay Godzilla movie.
I would agree with that.
And that goes between... Yeah, she does too. But that's where it comes with for me, the human stories that... Because the movie's basically split into 2 plots, one following each of the monsters and the humans that follow. And the human stuff that followed Kong, the Kong stuff was much better, and so was the human stuff that went along with it. And the Godzilla stuff, there wasn't a lot to the Godzilla plot, and there wasn't really a lot to the human stuff. That it was just conspiracy theory and proven correct conspiracy theory, and I don't love that. So
and it's like, how many times do they have to go through the same thing with him? Like, is he friend or is he foe? And it's like, okay, like every time you do something stupid, that's when he shows up. He doesn't just like destroy things.
Maybe take note of the fact that he keeps destroying the buildings of the same company over and over. Maybe that's why. But yeah, I do like what this movie did overall. I was just a little let down with half of the human side of things and the plots that revolve around the perspective of paranoid people who... It's just a weird thing to lean into for me right now because with everything going on in every corner of the internet, it's like you'd think leaning into conspiracy theories right now maybe not the best idea because they're in Congress. So,
yeah, true.
But
I think
it's also a monster movie, so whatever. But it just came out a little lacking for me on that side.
But I think it's easier to tell like a more human story with Kong because
he's got human eyes.
Well, that, and one of the big reveals initially was that he actually can communicate via sign language because he's speaking to the little girl, and she's like, oh my god, I like, as a fan of Coco's Kitten, and if you like are a millennial, you probably read that book when you were a child about the gorilla who learned to sign and had a baby kitten,
or at least saw the PBS stuff where like Robin Williams went and visited Coco, as I did when I was a kid as well.
And Coco actually only passed away like a couple years ago, like 2018. But that was like a big part of my childhood and like a big thing for me. So seeing that really brought back a lot of feels. But I kind of actually felt bad for Kong because if they just left him alone to do his thing on Skull Island, like he had been doing, would Godzilla have bothered him? Probably not, right?
Well, that's where some of the stuff is missing because, like, they couldn't leave him in... Like, they couldn't leave him on the island because he was still growing and he was outgrowing the island. That's why he was, like, breaking out. Because in Kong...
But why'd they put him in a dome?
Kong Skung... I couldn't even say that. Kong Skung Island. Kong Skull Island, they're like, oh, he's basically a teenager. So he's still semi-adolescent, so he's going to get way, way bigger. How else are you really going to get him to another place than put him on a boat? That's kind of how it goes. But realistically speaking, like, I think it was a requirement for plot, but it also, like, it makes sense because that's why are you going to take him off the island otherwise? Like, this isn't the King Kong story of bringing King Kong to New York and what have you. But it is still a using Kong for your own devices kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's a matter of they needed a reason to get him off the island and they already had the setup of he's still growing. So they had to, I think eventually he would have outgrown the island anyway. I don't know how he would get off of the island in that case, but like, let alone the fact that he would have outgrown it regardless. They also encased him in a Truman Show bubble. So
which was just, just
well,
weird.
So I kind of get that for the sake of they're trying to study him in as humane a way as possible, but also zoos are bad, so that's probably gonna be bad. But like, I
did like the opening though with the music and he's just doing his thing and he takes a shower in the waterfall and just like living his Kong life.
And the cutaway from that to the reality of him throwing the tree into the sky is a cool reveal.
And that's part of his routine in the morning. He's like, oh, this one looks good. Just do that tree today.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really, really pleased with the Kong stuff. It is a little bit, there's a lot of jumps for what we know in this universe. So like
Journey to the Center of the Earth?
Well, no, I don't even mean that. Like, I loved that. I loved the whole, like, Jules Verne and Arthur Conan Doyle kind of stuff. Or if we want to go less literary and say Land of the Lost. But
Living in the Land of the Lost.
I just mean as far as from the last Kong movie to this, there's no development. It's just like a pretty big gap of like, okay, so there's this person here studying Kong. What happened in the meantime?
Like this, all of a sudden there's this deaf kid that she like, that's like her daughter, but not her daughter. To them for
actually casting someone who is actually deaf for that role.
Oh no, I knew awesome. That because they were saying that Alexander Skarsgård actually learned sign language so he could communicate with her on set. Yeah. But I thought that was going to be part of the movie, but it wasn't. He actually didn't even use sign language as his character. Yeah,
his character thinks he did, but no.
He actually did learn so he could talk to her like while she was on set. Yeah, which I thought was cool. But yeah, you're right. There was like actually, it makes sense that there are a lot of gaps in what happened to Kong between now and, Skull Island, because there were a lot of gaps that they kind of, it's like, I like this movie as long as I don't think about it too much. Because if I start to think about it too much, then I'm starting to be like, why was it such a big deal to get to the center of the earth and they needed special vehicles and there's all this crazy shit with gravity and then Godzilla just fucking punches a hole in it and everything's fine.
That's the ploy of this movie is that they don't realize both sides are being played by the guy at Apex. They kind of like it's on the Godzilla side, he's evil villain, but on the Kong side, he's like the researcher trying to go out of his way to like help stuff. And I don't think it necessarily plays as well as they want it to, but I do think that's where they're going with it. And ultimately they needed to get there for this like radiation power that they used to power up Mechagodzilla. And that's...
Well, there's that, but when Kong goes back to his home and he assumes the throne, and you see it light up and you see Godzilla, or a drawing of Godzilla around him lighting up, I thought that was the way it was going to go, where like Kong is the king, but Godzilla is the guardian. Like that they were meant to not be, fighting each other for alpha, but they were meant to work together.
I think it's misinterpretation of what is ostensibly cave paintings. So I think they're like everyone interpreted as they're fighting, which then does happen. But like, I think it's a matter of that could be the case either way. I think that was left a little vague as well.
Which I thought that was where when I saw it light up and then he picks up the axe.
Well, the axe, to be fair, is also made of like a Godzilla spine thing. So...
And then he powers it up, and it's like they were like, it's like they were always meant to be. They had so many things that said like we're meant to be a team, but it just kind of happens. That's the
Batman v Superman aspect of it, where it's like they were probably fighting before, and then they needed something to come in and say like, no, the destiny is this. But yeah, it's...
Well, there was that, and then there was the whole Ghidorah like skull, but like they had a head maybe want
to point out to listeners that that sounded like a PlayStation turning on.
I'm sorry. So no, actually it was the Xbox just does that, just turns on sometimes by itself. I don't know why, it just does.
I'm gonna guess it has a Kinect hooked up to it which listens to you speaking.
It doesn't.
Oh, weird. Okay.
It's very weird, and we can't figure out why. But anyway, what I was saying is like the Ghidorah stuff, which was like the big thing at the end of Godzilla King of Monsters, was that they saved the head. And so they have the skull, and they're using the psychic connection that it had between the heads, and then there supposed to be another one in, like Mechagodzilla? But they're like that. I think that's what they said, but...
Yeah, I kind of glazed over with that. I do like the way that I looked at it without looking too far into it was it's a biocomputer. Like that's all that I really needed to process with it. I don't remember necessarily. They said there was another one, but I don't recall if they said it was definitely in Mechagodzilla's head or not.
Because I just found it weird that all of a sudden he's like, I'm doing my own thing. And it's like, what? I was like, do they have a sophisticated AI going? Like, because the other guy, they're like, no man who's having the best, like, 3D entertainment thing ever. No virtual reality for you. I'm taking over.
I do appreciate how absurd and ridiculous the style in this movie is, because you want to put glow sticks in the back of a dragon skull? Fuck yeah. I'm down with that. I'm super cool with that. That looks really awesome. They could have done a little bit better, I think, with it. They don't have to go super deep, but they could go a little more detailed on a couple of things.
Well, that and like when Millie Bobby Brown and the kid from Deadpool and the conspiracy guy
and
get
Hunt
stuck.
for the Wilder People.
Yes, when they get stuck.
Also, that's the voice of Miles Morales' dad.
Oh my god, it is! Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
When they get stuck in the container with the skull bashers, which we actually never see again, was that like an underground monorail? Like what? Like nobody questions like how they just woke up in Hong Kong?
Well, my assumption is that they have secret tunnels connecting all of their research centers or labs.
Secret tunnel.
But
secret tunnel.
But yes, it was a monorail specifically. But also to connect monorail to something else, there were shots in this when you're in Kong's lair in Hollow Earth where it looked exactly like the commercial for the old Universal Studios ride when you're inside the vehicle and you see Kong's face right here. It looked exactly like the 90s commercials for Universal Studios and the King Kong ride. And that
there were throwbacks
awesome.
to that too. There was some stuff in the vehicle that felt like you were on Star Tours or something, because the way you were looking out the front of it and it was like dipping down.
The POV on it was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I wouldn't
like
be surprised if they did it as an overlay for the current Kong ride, because the current Kong ride does have like lots of digital stuff going on versus the old school one where it was just an enormous from the shoulders up animatronic. So, yeah.
But I feel like they probably will, because the way that they like scoop around Kong and like go past Godzilla, like I actually like that. I thought that was cool. I kind of want to actually see this movie in IMAX, like when it is safe to do so.
Honestly, this movie, they released this movie in 3D, and it probably looks pretty fucking cool in 3D. As much as I'm not like huge on 3D, it probably looks pretty cool.
Especially like the like Hollow Earth stuff, that probably looks like amazing.
Yeah. The stuff with the Hollow Earth is interesting because while I appreciate it, I know there's going to be people who probably don't care for it versus because it's so different from what like classic Godzilla is. And they touched on it a little bit in the last movie and then went for it in this one. Because it's just that's not a thing in the classic movies, really. So
but I buy into it. It's like where the Titans come from.
For this version of them, it makes total sense because the origin of Godzilla in this one is changed. It's not that we created him with bombs, it's that we were bombing him. Like
he is ancient in this. Like he has existed before people, which I like that origin. I just felt like they took like one sample from it and then they wrapped it up and then everyone died. And it was like, okay.
It's definitely a compromise of an origin story. Because there is a responsibility aspect that gets thrown out the window with humans playing God. Which, you know, with what they did, it's fine. It does lose a pretty important piece of the puzzle for the franchise. But, I mean, ultimately, that's fine. And as long as they do it well, they do it well. And I think in this one, they did it pretty well. I love the journey to the center of the earth kind of stuff. One day I hope to get to Tokyo Disney Sea and ride that ride. Yeah. So, yeah.
I just wish that Kong actually did find his family. That would have been nice. Because, I mean, let's be real. He had a real rough time. He had a really, really rough time. Like, that poor guy was exhausted by the end. And rightly so.
I think if they knew this is going to be the end of this franchise, it maybe would have gone that way. But they're in basically active negotiations about the contracts on these things continuing. So they probably wanted to leave that open for the possibility of more movies. So we'll have to see, I guess, because that would have wrapped stuff up for sure. But also at that point, like what happens with Godzilla, because then you have a bunch of Kong and his family would be able to probably take out Godzilla.
But why would they? Because if they're living in Hollow Earth, just like doing their thing, and Godzilla's like, "Yo, I got this. I'm gonna make sure nobody does any shady business practices." But
he still got Godzilla to come like up to the surface and fight him again. So,
magically, the whole gravity thing they made a big deal about doesn't apply anymore.
Well, no, it doesn't really apply to him because he's so big. It applies to the people because they're small, and it like pulls on their guts and basically crushes them instantly. But he like, think of it like a submarine versus a person. Like he's built to withstand that a little bit more than we are, because it's doing is reversing gravity. It's not like causing everything to just stick. So that's the whole like why he was able to do the like floaty flip thing.
Well, I like how they have that,
Real
but they still bring it. They still bring a child with them.
Yeah.
They're like, this is going to be really brutal, but let's bring the kid with us.
That's the last two movies, counting this one, though, is there's a child. Like, there's
like no parental supervision in these films at all.
No, not at all. I will say somebody did make a good point. As much as I like the human stories in these, I cannot name a single character by name that is human in any of these movies at all.
I think Alexander Skarsgård's name was Nathan. Because she says, but also, Nathan, are you okay?
keep in mind, we watched this movie last night, and you can name one, and I can name
her name is Millie Bobby Brown. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Wait, I don't.
I know her as Russell's daughter. Because Vera Farmiga's character was, I don't know her first name. I know her last name was Russell, and that's about it. Like, everybody in these movies is just the person. It's Kyle Chandler. It's Alexander Skarsgård. Yeah, it's a weird duality I have with the human stuff where I don't know their names, but I care about the stories that involve them.
And now we're in like a second movie and we still don't know.
Reddick, you had Lance Reddick and you used him for like 4 sentences. Why? Lance Reddick is amazing, and you use him for 4 sentences. That's one actual big negative I will say about this movie.
I mean, the other thing that always gets brought up in these movies is like, I get that Godzilla is like trying to do the right thing here, but man, a lot of people in Hong Kong probably died, and probably a lot of military people in that first battle, because this was heavy on the destruction.
So here's the thing. I don't think he's necessarily doing what he thinks is right. I think that Godzilla is saying they're building a new apex predator out of the corpse of Ghidorah. And he's like, fuck that. I'm on top. And then,
but it's still it's still a bad idea anyway.
What, for Godzilla to kill people?
No. For them to do that, for them to build Mechagodzilla out of parts of Ghidorah. That's a terrible idea.
But I don't think Godzilla's motives to stop that is to save humanity necessarily. Like, I think it's a good side effect, but he's just stopping it to stop it. I don't think he's stopping it to like help humans out necessarily.
That first fight really made me nervous, by the way.
What,
that first one?
The battleship one or the aircraft carrier
one? The
one?
battleship one, which I thought was awesome. But like, Kong doesn't stand a chance. He doesn't stand a chance on water.
No, yeah. Well, that's the whole thing is like, once they fight on solid ground, it's a little more of him being like, now you're on my turf. So
I thought the fight scenes were actually really good. I thought they did a good job of, how would you take down thick Godzilla? Because he's a chunky boy.
Yeah. I do think it's kind of interesting how they were like, yeah, the entirety of the last 2 fights takes place over the span of like an hour at sunrise, because it's pitch dark, and then as soon as the initial fight is over and Mechagodzilla comes into it, it's bright as hell out, which I guess is just for the dynamics of it, but it was a little bit strange because, like, sure, I guess they want to show off so you can actually see Mechagodzilla in like all its glory. But I think it probably would have looked better at night anyway. So,
what? It doesn't have LEDs?
You could have just kept it at night. That's fine.
It doesn't have some fancy LED lights like along the side. Like they didn't build that in.
It's all these.
It changes with its mood.
Yeah, but that's the thing about this movie is I think this is a solid movie in general, but it doesn't have anything that sticks out in abundance. So it almost feels like obligation, like in order to critique it, we have to talk about negatives mostly, because it's hard to pinpoint like a lot of super good things, as opposed to just like, well, I liked this thing. Outside of like, in general, the plot stuff with Kong, I think was done very well. But everything else was like, yeah, that's good. So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree, like, 100%. It's just, I mean, the last movie got it for me because they literally destroyed my old work building, and, like, that really just, like...
Yeah, the best part of that was the
like,
fact that, like, parts of Boston got to be crushed by kaiju. That was awesome.
Well, that, and I love, like, if I have to pick, like, a kaiju that I love aside from Godzilla, it's Mothra.
Yeah. I think
it's like Mothra's my jam.
I think a lot of people would agree that, even if, myself included, even if you don't necessarily love King of the Monsters, the Mothra stuff was great. And it was also, like, visually stunning. Like, the actual scenery that they chose for reveals of the monsters in that movie is fantastic. The combination of coming off of that movie a little cold, and then the marketing for this movie I also didn't love. Like, there's something odd to me about putting, like, popular music over them fighting. So, like, not in the movie, but just in the ads and stuff, where it's like, it came off a little too video gamey for me to have, like, a hard-hitting song
You said
with
that.
lyrics playing in the background of them punching each other.
You said that, and like my brain immediately went to Driver's License. And you said popular song. And I was like,
I didn't say pop music. I said,
but literally, like, my brain just reconfigured the trailer.
Yeah.
You said, like, forever. Now I drive alone past your street.
Yes.
Someone please make this for me. Someone please cut the trailer to Driver's License.
But to go off of the music thing, I do think it was improved in those scenes where they actually because they're playing this movie as if Godzilla's a villain. I like that they do bring in a bit of the classic Godzilla theme into this, where he is portrayed as a villain at first in those movies. So it was a nice touch. It maybe got a little heavy-handed. It could have just been a motif instead of, like, actually using the full song. But yeah, I thought it was a cool way that they did music in this movie as well. It was a little thematically cool.
Yeah, I mean, I liked that. Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry, I have a tiny kaiju that's very demanding at this time of day. But now I lost my train of thought. Thank you, Olive. Thank you very much.
Well, we were coming off of me talking about the music stuff.
And then she's like, excuse me, I don't want to talk about this anymore. No, I agree with that too. I mean, I just keep comparing it to the previous movie, which I feel like was a better kaiju movie. And I feel like in this particular one, there's, like, a better cut of it. Not to get all, like, release the Snyder cut on this, but I feel like there are probably more human stories and more things that kind of filled that out that just didn't get seen.
Well, I don't even think that it's more. I think they just needed a different version of the story that they went with for following Godzilla. Like, you could have just done, instead of a conspiracy theory aspect of it, you could have just done, like, we need to investigate why this is happening. And it would have been not even just more believable, because you're following a character that was introduced in the last movie, which does not happen often in these movies. And they've made a jump from being, like, very interested in finding the answers on a scientific basis. And in this one, they're like, fucking 5G. Like it's kind of a jump. So it's not that I think that they could do more story there. I think that they just needed to do a different version of that story, because that was disappointing. That was a real letdown.
I mean, you even could have done something with them building this like deep sea monorail through his territory. He'd be like, oh hell no.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is like
you're pushing like random creatures, like, because they had the skull bashers in there, right? And like you're pushing them through my territory. Oh, I don't think so. Since they made a big deal about his territorial waters.
Yeah, I think that's one of those overlooking, like, as an audience member, you have to overlook the details or else the whole thing falls apart. Because it is like, it's a cool little thing to just have them there to test the Mechagodzilla. And I think that you have to kind of shut the brain off with that, because it's just, that's for the cool moment, the cool reveal. Doesn't have to be too deep, but yeah. But overall, it's an improvement on the last movie to me. It sounds like for you, maybe not as much, but
yeah, I don't know. I think the last movie was a better kaiju movie, and I don't know. I feel like there are more holes in the plot of this that, you know me, I tried so hard to suspend it, but I'm like, as a writer, I start to fill them in like myself. And so I think that kind of takes me out of it.
That's how I felt about the last one, is like, why did Vera Farmiga suddenly jump from like scientist to mad scientist? Like, there's no connection there.
Like,
so,
I am all of a sudden an eco-terrorist. Nice to meet you.
Well, and not even eco-terrorist. It was using eco to cause terrorism. It was a very strange jump that they made with that, and that's where everything fell apart for me on the last one. Which is why, for the most part, because the Kong stuff in this is so good, I can overlook the Godzilla side a little bit, even though it still let me down.
They could have even tied it into the last movie, where he went back to his origin place when he had to recover. Remember? Right. And they sent him down. Like, they have their spots, they have their origins, but they kind of just like forgot that happened for him.
Oh man, no! I thought of the really heavy-handed, like salmon returning to their spawning point. Like, yes, thanks for clearing that up. But yeah, I like it enough that I would put this above the last movie. I still think the first Godzilla movie and Skull Island are better than both of those, though. So, you know, it is what it is. I hope they continue on, because especially since I feel like this was an improvement over the last one, I'd like to see them continue to like harness what they're doing with this one and move forward.
The next one is going to be harnessing the power of the kaiju.
It's going to be like, everyone's going to wear a wristwatch that has like a Godzilla, we need you.
And he's like, what? Yeah, I'll be there in 5.
And we'll get Godzuki. That's 100%.
Yep.
Yeah,
and other Mothra, maybe. Because they're twins. Please come back.
You accidentally did an impression, kind of what happens in the old movies. But yeah, I'd like to see them move forward for that. I don't know if it's feasible to continue making both of these franchises. Just because it's...
I mean, it'd be very easy to wrap up Kong, but I don't want them to, but I'm just saying, like, he has his homeland now.
Yeah.
And Godzilla's still, like, cruising around. And
yeah, there was a fairly finite with some loose threads for Kong. Yeah. But we'll see. Other than that, I think we covered as much as we can with this one. So
yeah, I'm hungry, and so is my dog.
Yeah, we know. But like I said at the beginning of this, we have done a bunch of new episodes, a more filled schedule of episodes. So if you want to go back, we got Falcon and the Winter Soldier we just put up. We have Snyder Cut. We have WandaVision. Bunch of stuff and a bunch more coming. So join us for those. And until then.
Wait, hold on. I'll say bye. For our new listeners, this is the one who keeps making all the noise. Say bye, Bubby.
Bye.